Hello, everyone, and welcome to the University of Maine Cooperative Extension's Using Canned Goods in Cooking webinar. I'm Lisa Fishman, nutrition professional in Aroostook County. Thank you so much for all of you for joining us today. This webinar is part of our winter-spring series, Cooking with the Maine Harvest, that discusses ways to increase your use of local and homegrown foods. Today, we'll be joined by my UMaine food team colleagues, Kate McCarty, Laurie Bowen, and Kathy Savoy. The mission of the University of Maine Cooperative Extension is to help Maine people improve their lives through an educational process that uses research-based knowledge focused on issues and needs. Our educational programs include agriculture, horticulture, including master gardeners, 4-H youth development, food safety, and of course, nutrition. And finally, we want to let you know that the University of Maine is prohibited from discriminating on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, age, disability, and reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity. Tonight, we will focus on using home canned goods in your cooking. Some food you preserved last year might have obvious uses like pickles, tomato sauce, and salsa. But perhaps you have a lot of relish and are finding there's only so much tuna salad you can eat. Or maybe it's jams that you're looking into using in other ways than on toast at breakfast. We'll have a lot of creative ways that go past the typical use for common home canned foods. And as always, we'd love to hear your favorite ways to use your preserved foods. First, some housekeeping. We have our webinar set up so that you can hear and see us, but we can't hear or see you. But we want to answer your questions, so please ask them as they come up for you during our presentation by using the Q&A feature, which is located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we're going to get things kicked off with a poll. We would like to know, what did you can last year? And you can choose all that apply. You don't have to limit yourself to just one. Was it fruit in the form of a jam, a jelly? Was it whole fruits and syrup? Did you can pickles? Perhaps it was salsa or tomato products. Did you can some vegetables in your pressure canner? Did you can any meat products in your pressure canner? Or perhaps you were just really busy last year and you didn't do any canning. Go ahead and let us know, and we're going to give you a few seconds to get your answers in there. All right. And we find that a great majority of you went down the fruit session, and you went with the jams, the jellies, the whole fruits, maybe some juices, things like that. But I'm really happy to see a lot of pickles, not a whole lot of vegetables in the pressure canner, but a lot of meats. That's great. And some of you didn't necessarily can anything last year, but you're here to learn what you're going to do with your things this year when you can them. Great. Thank you, everyone. Some great answers there. Throughout our presentation, please feel free to share your favorite ways to use canned foods in your cooking. We love to hear your ideas, and we'll share them with the rest of the attendees at the end of our session today. So if you've joined us here today, we're going to guess that you have some home canned foods on hand that you want to use. Maybe you planted a garden last year and you canned a lot, or maybe you're a longtime canner and you're looking for some new and creative ideas for how to use up your standard repertoire of canned products. No matter what your canning experience level, we hope to inspire you and shake up your cooking routine a little bit. At this point in the pandemic and very early spring in Maine, many of us could use a few new tips to inspire our home cooking. That's for sure. We hate being in ruts. Canned goods like pickles, jams, and salsa may all be fairly obvious in how to use, as these are foods that are ready to eat once you open the jar. But foods like beans and other vegetables and meat may need some dressing up to become an enticing meal. We're going to show you some of our favorite ways to use some home canned goods and hopefully spark some new ideas for you as we head into spring. It's a great time to make sure you're on track to use up your home canned goods from last year so that your shelves are ready for this year's harvest. So first thing we want to talk about is before you dig into your home canned goods is we want to talk about safety, and primarily, how do you know that the canned foods that are on your shelf after months and months of storage are really safe to eat? We recommend giving your jars a good once over before you open them to ensure nothing has spoiled while in storage. So let's discuss what you can expect when using home canned foods from your storage. Ideally, your home canned goods are stored in a cool, dark, dry place. And by cool, we mean between 50 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Excessive heat, including that caused by sunlight, can cause any bacteria that survived the canning process in the jars to multiply. Heat can also cause the headspace in your jars to expand, which can break the vacuum seal that holds the lid onto the jar. Sunlight will also cause your canned goods color to fade. So while it may seem like a good idea to display your homemade jams and jellies and pickles in the kitchen, it's better to find a cooler spot away from direct light. We also recommend storing jars with the screw bands removed. And I know that's a recommendation that surprises and frankly instills fear in some people, but rest assured, screw bands can trap moisture and food particles. They can rust onto the jar and otherwise hide signs of spoilage inside the jar. So after canning, be sure to remove those bands. Wipe down your jars, let them dry, label and date them, and then put them into storage. Once you've selected a jar of home canned food to use in a meal, first check the seal. The button in the middle of the lid should be pulled in, creating a concave look in the lid. This indicates that a vacuum is still formed inside the jar. If the button is up or the lid comes off without resistance, your seal has failed and the food should not be eaten, as it has been sitting unsealed at room temperature for an unknown period of time. The lid itself should also be in good shape with no holes or damage or flaking metal that can happen if canned high acid foods are stored for too long. Food should be eaten within 1 year of canning to avoid these safety and quality concerns. Now, once you've determined that the lid and the seal are still good, check out the contents of the jar. Now, some fading of the food's natural color is normal, but the food should not be dramatically discolored. Other signs of spoilage in canned goods include liquid seeping from the jar, bubbling, foaming, fizzing, mold, and a swollen lid due to gases produced by unwanted microbial growth. Again, if you see any of these signs of spoilage, discard the food without tasting it. Please note that low acid foods, including tomatoes, can be spoiled and not have any change in flavor. So tasting is not a good way to determine whether food is safe to eat. If you have any doubts whatsoever about how a canned food was prepared or stored, or whether it's spoiled, please throw it out. The old adage, when in doubt, throw it out, is very much in play here. We'll provide a link in our resources to the USDA recommendations on identifying and handling spoiled canned goods in our resource section. This information comes directly from the USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning. We, as Extension staff, are here to answer any specific questions about what you may be seeing in your home canned foods, so please don't ever hesitate to get in touch with any of us with any questions you may have. When using home canned goods in your home cooking, you can use them as a substitute for bought canned food or even fresh food in a recipe. However, there will be a few things to consider regarding the recipe's cook time and seasoning when using home canned goods. Due to the canning process, these foods have already been subjected to heat, either boiled for a short period of time in the water bath canner or a superheated environment with steam in a pressure canner. This means your food will be pre-cooked and will not need much as far as cooking time is concerned, as the raw equivalent would need. So for example, a recipe will instruct you how to add carrots into your soup at the beginning of the cook time to thoroughly cook them. But you can add a jar of your home canned carrots toward the end of the recipe's cook time just to heat the food pieces through. And if you didn't add any salt to your jars when you canned them, you'll find that these foods may need a little more seasoning than a commercially canned version that usually has quite a bit of added sodium. But many people turn to canning as a way to control added ingredients, so this can definitely be a plus. We're going to go to Kathy now, and she's going to talk about some more uses for your home canned goods.
Thanks so much, Lisa, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. It's certainly one of our rare, beautiful spring days here in Maine, so thanks for taking the time to be with us. So now we're going to start to look at some of the common home canned foods and perhaps some new ways that you can use them. Let's start with the ever popular tomato. Jars of salsa and tomato products certainly fill most of our shelves, as those summer tomatoes and the flavor that they bring are always one of the favorites for people to preserve. We love to have our research tested salsa recipes on hand to enjoy with tortilla chips as an appetizer. Certainly one of my family's favorites. And tomatoes are great to replace the store-bought canned versions in so many things, including soups, stews, chili, Italian dishes, and casseroles. Salsa can be used for more than just on chips as an appetizer. Remember to use it in Mexican dishes like enchiladas, tacos, burritos, or even with baked chicken to create a spicy Southwest entree. We love to make some of these Mexican roll-ups ahead of time using our homemade salsa. So stay tuned, we're going to queue up a FNEP video to share with you. And here it is. Thanks to our FNEP colleagues for that video. And we just do want to point out that those really do freeze great and are awesome to have on hand for a quick lunch or dinner. And they do incorporate a lot of things that you may have on hand as leftovers, or again, be able to utilize some of your home canned goods that you're wanting to make sure you use up within that 1 year recommendation that we have for home canned goods. So let's talk for a minute about relish. If you've made relish, you know that most relish recipes will make a lot of volume. And there are only so many things that you can do with relish, and there's only so many hot dogs that you can enjoy your relish on. So beyond hot dogs, what can you do with all of that, perhaps zucchini, corn, or pickle relish? We've got some ideas to share with you. And again, we'd like to emphasize how important it is for you to share with us some of your uses that you may have found for your home canned goods in the Q&A box. So a few ideas from your UMaine food team include using it as a spread on some sandwiches, whether that is mixing it ahead with mayonnaise to make your own sort of tartar sauce, or add ketchup to make it a special sauce for a veggie, turkey, or beef burger. Use corn relish to top baked sweet potatoes or even regular baked potatoes, or add it to salsa at snack time. That would really sweeten it up and make that flavor just a little bit different than what you maybe have come familiar with. Corn relish is also great anywhere you serve beans, like Mexican dishes in the video that we just saw. And also consider using it with slow cooked meats like pulled pork, pulled chicken. That can really liven the dish up. And again, if you've got your own ideas, perhaps something that we haven't thought of, please share it in the Q&A box so that everyone else can learn from you. You may recall that just last week we celebrated St. Patrick's Day, and you always will see cabbage on sale this time of year. I saw it for as low as 35 cents a pound. So it is on sale, and it is something that you could consider utilizing, taking advantage of a sale, and making some fermented cabbage, sauerkraut, and then using it as a side dish for your favorite meals. A big batch is nice to make, but then what do you do with all of it? Remember that it does go great as a side with potatoes and kielbasa or any other type of sausage. You can also get really creative and mix it in with an omelet to add some crunch. Or also you could add it to a rice and vegetable bowl. Those things are very popular. A lot of people are enjoying a bowl for a healthy lunch. And I can let you know that I've had a lot of fun this past winter making Korean pancakes called jaeon that use sauerkraut. And that is a really nice, fun appetizer that we've had. I know we enjoyed it as a Super Bowl snack. And it's served with a traditional soy sauce. And I encourage you to find a recipe if you're interested by searching on the internet. Let's talk for a minute about if you have got some ready to eat home canned beans on hand. And these, what I'm talking about, are home canned beans that you would have previously pressure canned. We know that they do grow easy in the garden, or that you can buy them directly from local growers. We'd like to encourage you to think of them as something that you can use in Mexican dishes, baked beans, casseroles, soups, chilies, or to make a simple dip or hummus with. I've also gotten quite creative and made my own homemade version beanie burgers with them as well, mixing them up with some breadcrumbs, some chopped vegetables, an egg, and mashed beans. And that has been something that we've enjoyed a lot at my house. We're going to queue up another FNEP recipe from our FNEP colleagues. And this shows you how easy it is that you can mash the beans by hand, which shows that you do not need to have any special equipment in your kitchen to be able to make this mainly dish recipe. So yes, indeed, using home canned beans can be as easy as just breaking your fork out and mashing them up to use them in the recipe that we just saw. Another way to use some of your canned vegetables that you may happen to have on hand and are wondering how to use them is to drain them and put them into a blender or even a home food processor and puree them until they are smooth. You can then add herbs and spices to perk up the flavors or add other canned goods like bean puree. These bean purees, these vegetable purees, are very nutritious sauces that can be used for meats, fish, and poultry. You can also think to incorporate them into homemade meatloaves. They could also be a binder that could be used in a casserole or even some smoothies, or even use them as baby food, as long as there is no added salt or other ingredients that your baby might not be able to eat. So you can sneak some pureed beets into your favorite chocolate cake recipe. This is something that I've seen many a creative home chef do, and the surprise on their family's face when they realized there were vegetables in that chocolate treat they just enjoyed. So you may also find some other creative uses using pureed fruits in our Altering Recipes for Better Health publication from the University of Maine Cooperative Extension. And we'll be including this as a resource in your follow-up email that you always get after joining us on these webinars. So now we're going to jump into the demo kitchen. And we're going to join Kate, who is going to show us how to use some of your home canned goods, perhaps those jars that are lingering on the shelves a little too long and you're worried about how you're going to use them, to create a very popular item that we're seeing a lot of people enjoying these days, and that is a cheese board. So Kate, take it away.
Thanks, Kathy. So yes, if you spend any time on Pinterest or Instagram, you know that cheese boards are having a moment, charcuterie boards. So we thought it would be fun to show you ways you can use any home canned goods that you might have in a cheese board. These are perfect for backyard barbecues and parties and sharing. So in my mind, this is not happening anytime soon, but hopefully that is on the horizon where we are all back to sharing a beautiful cheese board with our loved ones in person. I can't wait. So in the meantime, we're going to brush up on our skills so that we are ready for when that moment comes. So to start, you want to pull out a big, beautiful display board. So I'm using a wooden cutting board, but you can use anything, of course, that's a food grade surface. That's nice to display your cheese or charcuterie board on. Of course, there's no shortage of big, beautiful rustic or marble boards to display your food on these days. So again, I've got this big wooden cheese or cutting board, and the first thing I did was to put out the little jars or bowls that my condiments are going to go in. So this kind of acts as the placeholder because those will help you kind of visually arrange your cheese selection around it. And I do want to make sure, because again, we're trying this side-by-side view in Zoom. So you should see both my face as well as the overhead phone view of the cheese board. So if you can't, let us know in the Q&A box so that we can make sure that you see what I think you're seeing. So I put out these little bowls. I've got 5 condiments that I'm going to use on my cheese board. So those are the placeholders. And then I'm going to fill in the cheese around it. So it's kind of recommended typically to use an odd number of cheeses. That will help just like with a visual display. So I picked 3 cheeses, so about 3 to 5 is usually good. And then that will allow you to encompass a wide variety of styles as well. So here I'm down in Falmouth in our teaching kitchen. I went into Portland. We've got a lot of great specialty markets there. So I went to the cheese shop. Unfortunately not sponsored, just went to the cheese shop and purchased some cheese. Just wanted to give them a shout out because they're so helpful. So if you are kind of lost in picking a variety of cheese, you can always find someone to help you pick them out. The people who sell cheese, especially if that is their business in a specialty market, will be very knowledgeable and help you pick out a variety of styles. I went with 3 Maine cheeses, as is the case, and I was able to find at this store a good variety that will be perfect for all tastes. Delicious. Kathy and I are going to be enjoying this cheese board, but my pretend backyard barbecue, it'll be appealing to everyone, whether they like really funky cheeses or more mild. So we'll start with this one I got called Little Bloom. So this is from Tide Mill Creamery, which is a dairy and poultry farm way up in a place called Edmonds, Maine, which is up near Eastport. So it's like as far down east as you can get. It's a family farm right on the water. They raise cows. And so they also have a creamery where they take the milk and pass it over to the cheesemakers. And they have made, this is a cow's milk cheese with a bloomy rind. So the bloomy rind then is what you'll find on like a brie. So it's going to be similar to that. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to cut it in half for us. With a soft cheese, I probably wouldn't cut it into pieces, although it is nice and firm. So you could if you wanted for easy serving. So you can see it's got this bloomy rind on the outside. It's kind of white, soft. It's up to people whether they like to eat it or not. I do, of course. And then a little bit of ash added, so you can see the little dark rim around the rind. So it's nice to display so people can see the inside, know what they're getting into when they approach it with their knife. And then for variety, we have an aged cheese. So this one is coming from Fuzzy Udder Creamery in Whitefield, Maine, which is just kind of central Maine near Augusta-ish. And this is compared to a Gouda. So it's, again, aged with a nice natural rind. So you can see that there. And then a nice buttery yellow interior. I just happened to pick up all cow's milk cheeses. So this is also a cow's milk cheese. This one I would slice for ease of serving. It's nice to be able to just pick up a little slice of cheese. So you could cut a few slices for your guests. Always nice to get people started. We've all been at a party with like a glass of wine in one hand, trying to manage like cutting up cheese with the other hand. So it's nice to be able to just snag a slice, ready to go there. And then my third cheese is Deja Blue, which is from Spring Day Creamery nearby in Durham, Maine. So it's kind of near Freeport. That one there. So this one's unique. It's, again, a blue cheese, but it's called an external blue. So the cheese guy told me this. I don't know that much about it, but apparently cheesemakers typically will puncture blue cheese while it's being aged, and that allows the molds inside to bloom. This cheesemaker does not do that, and so the blue cheese is only on, the mold is only on the outside of the cheese. So we're gonna see when we cut into it what it looks like. He said it would not be blue on the inside, but you're just gonna get that blue flavor from the exterior rind of the cheese. That's pretty cool. Also gives people the option to avoid it if they're not big, strong cheese flavored people. Again, I am, so I would eat all of that. All right, so we've got our 3 cheeses put out, and now let's get into the condiments. So I raided my refrigerator, and I found lots of great stuff in there. I'll start with this cranberry chutney that I made presumably last November. And it was a little bit stiff, so one good tip is to microwave the jars. And that way it comes out nice and soft, and it will open up the flavor too, so it's not like refrigerator cold when you are putting it on your cheese board. So cranberry chutney. It's nice to have a mix of like pickled items, sweet items. So I'm gonna add dilly beans on there. Those are of course a big favorite in my household, very popular item. These are kind of long, so I think if I were really serving this, I would chop them up into little smaller size bits.
Kate, I'm wondering if we could get a close-up of your board. We're not seeing the side-by-side display.
Mm.
So maybe if we could get a close-up on your board, it would show us all.
You're only seeing my face. There we go. How's that?
I think the board is better seen this way. Thanks a lot to our controls woman.
Thanks. All right, so I've got my 3 cheeses. I got the cranberry chutney, the pickled green beans or dilly beans. And then last year, Kathy and I made this. It's a sweet pickle. So this is a cauliflower red pepper, and it's got some onions in it as well. So it's nice again to have the variety of pickled items, not just the tart dilly beans, but the sweet and sour cauliflower and red pickles here, or red pepper here. So pile that one up. And this one is I won't say long time favorite, it's fairly recent discovery, but I absolutely love it. So it's a roasted garlic, thyme preserve. and it's gelled a little bit using the Ball classic pectin. So it is a recipe from Ball, and it's so good on cheese boards, as well as in grilled cheeses. I really like the savory sweet application of jams on cheese boards, and so that's where I lean. You could, of course, just put out a traditional like strawberry, cherry, blueberry jam. It'll be great with like a sharp cheddar. And then I have a jalapeno jelly. This one you can see has a label on it. My in-laws brought it back for me from Arizona pre-COVID. And I microwaved it so it slides out nice and easy. Looks like all we're gonna get, but it's nice and melty. It comes out easier out of the jar. And then you can see now I've got all the major players put out, and then we can fill in with our add-ons. So I'm gonna fill it in with crackers, but you could also fill in with nuts, dried fruit, and then you could fold up little slices of salami or prosciutto and fill in all this space. So that's really is what's gonna give you that Instagram look, is to fill in all the negative space with those add-ons. So I got these cute little crackers that are locally made. They are, what are they called? Maine Crisp. This is a new product. Again, we just like to share things we like. This is not a sponsored webinar or anything. But they're great and they're gluten-free. They use local fruit. So this is the blueberry one. And I like that they're bite-sized. So there's another version of these that's made and available nationally, the rainforest ones. They're bigger, but I like that these are nice, kind of one bite size. And I've seen these in a few places, so they're pretty widely available. And then I also have these everything crackers. So it's like an everything flavor, like onion and poppy seed and sesame seed and garlic, but then really thin, like a wheat thin style. And they are also made locally by a woman who produces out of, or used to, I think she might have outgrown it, but at the Fork Food Lab, it's called Mill Cove Baking. And again, I've seen them at Hannaford, Rosemont, so those are local and widely available. So yeah, you just fill in. You could certainly add like fresh fruit, would give it some nice color. I think I would need some like raspberries or something. And then some rosemary or just fresh herbs to fill in with greenery. And voila, I think you got yourself a pretty Instagrammable cheese board there. I do say so myself. Okay, so two more things before we go back to Lisa. First is we love this. We wanted to mention as far as preparing things using your canned goods, this new Ball Blue Book. Here we go. It's nice and thick, several hundred pages. Has a lot of recipes for canning, and then on top of that, we'll tell you how to use them. So for instance, the salsa ranchero recipe here is right next to huevos rancheros. So it tells you how to use your salsa, which we really like, as well as making like an oven roasted marinara. And then it has a recipe for meatballs using that marinara. Sorry, I know my camera's a little wonky here. So we'll include this in the resource list if that's something you're interested in. The canning recipes are great, but I just love the way it then follows it with a recipe for cooking. And lastly, I wanted to give a special shout out, thank you to Joanne for our new pot holders. So she outfitted our demo kitchen with these beautiful pot holders. We're not cooking anything hot today, but I just wanted to show you all and say thanks to Joanne for those. All right, so that's it for me and my cheese board. I'll be over here snacking. We're gonna go next to Lisa.
Thank you, Kate, and thanks to Joanne for those beautiful pot holders. Those are going to be featured prominently down there, I think. So as Kate was mentioning, that cheese board is really a great way to pull some things off the shelf of your pantry and incorporate them into a really simple display and a really simple cheese board that you can share. And it looks delicious, and some of us haven't had lunch yet. So yeah. So we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about using some of your canned goods into desserts. So we're going to look at the sweet applications for your jams, jellies, spreads, and other sweet kinds of fruits that you have on your shelf. These products can be used as a topping to your yogurts, oatmeal, even nut butter sandwiches, toast, of course. but they can be used in a host of other baked goods. So baking is a great way to use up some of your jams and spreads that don't turn out quite the way you wanted them. So sometimes we would list them as a failed batch, and you might stick them aside because they're too runny or too stiff, but don't pitch them in the trash. Keep a hold of them and use them in some of these clever ways here that we're going to talk about. Um, so you can use those up. And we also have some ideas for using frozen fruits in your baked goods that we covered in our previous webinar in earlier March. And you can flip back and check out that webinar to talk about how to use some of those frozen fruits in your baked goods. So jams and jellies, especially those that you would have set aside as not quite the way you liked, can be baked into jam bars. They can be used for your thumbprint cookies. They can be used as a filling between layers of your cake. So a nice little sweet spread of a jam in between cake layers is yummy to tap into. You can also spread them onto cakes as a glaze, and that makes the top of the cake or the top of the cheesecake just look like almost like a mirror. It's so beautiful. So that's a great application for that there. But you can also spread them onto, swirl them into brownies. You can swirl them into cheesecakes in a beautiful pattern. You can put them in scones and in quick breads. And one really clever thing that we love to do is to put applesauce or apple butter into our bundt cakes, banana breads, or chocolate cakes. And it just gives a really special sweet flavor that people don't expect when they're biting into these kinds of things. And it's a really great way to use some of these products on your shelf. Sweet spreads are not just delegated to sweet desserts. Sweet spreads can also be used in savory applications. Just like Kate showed us with that beautiful cheese board, you can add all kinds of savory types of or pickled fruit types of items onto a cheese board. You can also add jam to a pizza or flatbread. And you can think of things like a pear, blue cheese, red onion combo on a flatbread or a pizza. Doesn't that sound good? Again, I haven't eaten lunch, so almost everything sounds good to me right now. You can always fall back onto the very tasty and very popular cream cheese with the application of a red pepper jelly on top. That's usually warmed up a little bit like Kate talked about doing in the microwave and spread over a brick of cream cheese. You can add jam to crock pot meals like apple chutney or peach preserves to make a sauce for your pulled pork or your pulled chicken. And who hasn't at least one time in their life added a jar of grape jelly to their crock pot for those tasty meatballs paired up with chili sauce? It makes probably the most popular appetizer ever, those little party meatballs. You can also add some of your jams and jellies to your homemade salad dressings, and that brings a nice fruity flavor to your salads. You can add a teaspoon or so to your homemade raspberry or blueberry balsamic dressings, and that would be terrific for you to come up with that. Another great idea for using up canned goods, believe it or not, is to give them away. Perhaps you have a friend or several of your friends with whom you have a canned goods swap. Swap a jar or two of a big batch of chutney like Kathy made when you make relish. Kathy mentioned when you make relish, it doesn't make just a couple jars, it makes a big batch. And so maybe you want to swap out some of your relish for something that you didn't make. And you could take that coveted grape jelly or specialty sauce that you have on hand and swap it out for something that someone else has made that you'd really like to try. It can be a really fun way to get new recipes without a whole lot of commitment. It's a great way to get rid of products that you found you weren't all that crazy about once you canned them and popped open the lid on something and tried it. You thought, well, maybe somebody else would like it, but it's not really my cup of tea. Put it in the swap and see who else wants to try your cast-offs. Of course, you only want to swap canned goods for other canned goods that you know were canned properly and are of good quality. We really don't want to have any harm come to our friends or our family. We only want good food to be swapped back and forth with each other. The Maine Master Food Preserver volunteers always have held a good canned goods swap at the end of the year, and it was really missed in 2020. So we're looking at some of the highlights from past years that included a cherry chocolate jam, that included flavored mustards, and that included pickled garlic scaves. Wow. We look forward to getting back to the swapping of canned goods this year with our Master Food Preserver volunteers. And with that, we're going to slip over to Lori and see if there are any questions that have come up in the Q&A box that we need to answer.
Thank you, Lisa. We do have a couple of questions. I apologize. I lost the name here of the person who was asking about the Korean pancakes, but not sure I'll say it right, but I can spell it for you. It's J-E-O-N, Jeon. And that was with the cabbage for the Korean pancakes. Also, Amy would like to ask about if tartar sauce was mentioned for the relish, which I think it was, or if Thousand Island dressing was mentioned.
So I've made my own style tartar sauce a lot with different types of relish that I've mixed with mayonnaise. And I've done that with the corn relish mixed with mayonnaise and served that over a black bean burger. So you really can do it with any type of relish. It will give you that tangy tartar sauce that you're looking for. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. So I'm asking folks if you would like to put in the Q&A some of your creative uses for your canned goods. You can just go ahead and put those right in the Q&A. Also, if folks could enter in the Q&A what they might like to see for upcoming webinars when we get started again. Whatever topic you think you might like to learn a little bit more about, maybe something we could go over again for you. Anything that's going to be helpful for you or you're interested in. Now, right now, we do not have any more questions or comments in the Q&A. So I am going to send it back to Lisa and give folks a chance to put their comments in there. Thank you.
I was hoping to be able to back up one slide and just get in the point that we wanted to make about understanding that last year we did have a canning supply shortage, and we do expect for that to continue into the preserving season of 2021. And we want to emphasize to everyone the importance of not contributing to the problem, but to actually being part of a solution, and in only buying in advance the things that you need to have on hand. You know, we don't want to have a run on canning lids because everyone hears that there's a shortage. And also think creatively about where you might go to access those types of supplies. Craft stores, hardware stores, your smaller mom and pop style grocery stores, maybe alternative outlets that you may be able to find those supplies at. So now we'll head back for Lisa to take it home.
Okay, Kathy, thank you for that reminder. So we want to share our information here on our recommended resources. You'll get all of these resource lists included in the follow-up email, including our directory of Maine farm products so that you can shop locally. As Kathy said, this is our last planned webinar for 2021, for our winter series of 2021, but we are in the planning stages for offering more webinars. And the more ideas that we can gather from you, our audience, the more we'll be able to offer things that are of particular interest to you. So we really do want to tailor our offerings to your needs and your wishes. And it would be greatly helpful if you could let us know the types of things that you'd like to see offered. If you'd like to see something repeated that you may have missed, but you saw was offered earlier in the year or during our 2020 season, go ahead and include those topics as well. We're not adverse to offering something else that we've already offered in the past. We want to thank you today for joining us. We hope you get outside, enjoy some of this beautiful Maine spring weather, and we hope you and your loved ones are staying healthy. And thanks for joining us today. Take care, everyone.